just for the sake of discussion, John Glenn.
He and I bonded immediately. Who can describe the reasons for bonding? I used to have a great deal of respect for him. We had a lot of interests in common. There were 3 Air Force fellows in the group. We used to kid each other about not caring much for one another, but we all recognized that we were on the same side. This isn't Cold War time. They were, all of them, highly qualified professionals, and I had the highest respect for every one of them. I was just more bonded with John than any of the others because of common interests.
How about Gus Grissom?
A true professional, didn't have a lot to say, but when he said something, it was always worth listening to.
Wally Schirra?
The Joker. He doesn't like to be called the Joker, but he is a great hijinks fellow, you know, and he added a lot of levity to everything we did, and that was very valuable.
How about Deke Slayton?
Deke, probably the most dedicated, single-minded professional test pilot of the group. He was more dedicated to airplanes in general and how they worked, I think, than any other fellow in the group.
Alan Shepard?
Born leader, came to the program with a lot of experience and a lot of talent. And it showed up in his choice as the first spaceman in this country.
How about Scott Carpenter? How would you see him fitting into that group?
I leave that to others.
Very good. You had early assignments in Mercury. Do you remember what they were?
Communications and navigation, and that's as a result of my experience at Patuxent, the Naval Air Test Center, with equipment and techniques that had to do with Earth observation and photography and communications.
Did those specialties pay off for you a little later in the program? Communication, navigation?
Well, those sciences, if you will, were the ones that I was directed to follow. So I had a background that was helpful in the tasks that were assigned to me by NASA.
What were some of your early assignments in Mercury?
Making sure that the communications equipment worked well. These and the navigation techniques were adequate to the task. These were just the small tasks that I was given to monitor solo. And each of us had certain tasks for which they were responsible. We all had a lot of tasks to do together.
Not the least of which was the assignment of being Capcoms round the world during those early Mercury flights, when it was astronauts could only talk to astronauts. Where were you, for example, during well, let's start at the beginning with Alan Shepard, and then with John Glenn and Gus Grissom. Where were you?
Yeah. For Al's flight, Wally Schirra and I, in keeping with an old Air Force, Edwards, as a matter of fact, practice of chasing every experimental flight with airplanes. Walt Williams from Edwards, highly placed in the administration in those days, thought we should chase Al Shepard's flight just because it was always done. So Wally Schirra and I were given some Air Force airplanes, F-102s, to chase Al's flight. We orbited, and we couldn't stay close to the pad because there were a lot of unknowns and dangers in those days that we didn't quite know how to cope with. But Wally and I were were circling the pad, listening to the count, and but at some distance, maybe 3 miles away. And Al took off and going straight up, and Wally and I never saw a thing. You can't chase a redstone going straight up in a 102. So all we did is fly circles. And we came down and sort of said to each other what happened.